We do the intro. Hello. Hi guys, welcome to Zero to Brilliance, where podcast where Matt, Richie, and although Richie's not here today because he's doing something else, modelling gig or something. Is that what you said, Matt?
Definitely what he's doing. You should start the pod, mate, with an apology to all of our female viewers and listeners. Like, this is not going to be the best looking pod.
Yeah.
Without our main man, the prince of hotness here, then we're done.
Just the two regular old guys.
I did say we should call this the leftovers, like this episode.
Yeah. So this podcast brings you inside the walls of the journey. We're a real startup. We'll be super candid about all the good, the bad, and the ugly stuff that happens. We won't be sugarcoating things, as you probably know if you've listened to any other ones. And if you're a startup founder, customer, or even competitor, you want to be on the fly on the wall. You subscribe and see how we go. So, what we'll be chatting today about is we're going over some surveys that we've had, and we'll also be talking about some, chatting or cold calling investors, and also some story brand stuff. So let's jump in now. So Matt, with the surveys, we did some surveys. We've been doing them for a while now, just to get good user feedback. So what sort of insights have we got?
I did other stuff this week other than that, mate. I tell you what, anybody who's got this far, well done.
100%. 2 minutes in, you're like, these guys fucking are useless.
Oh, shit. No, so we went to school holidays up in Queensland, so busy juggling kids, trying to keep them entertained, and it's rained all week, which is horrible for children. Because then they have to stay inside and you have to spend time with them. And you're not allowed to call it babysitting because your wife gets real upset. Apparently, it's still parenting. But that's a different discussion for another time. And so that a few other bits and pieces, and then as you mentioned, some user surveys we've had running for a while. So long-term listeners of the pod will know that my struggle with pivot tables, which I managed to overcome. So we've got some interesting insights, which is good. Some things validated, some things discovered. So across our kind of three user groups, or the investigators, the sellers, and the buyers, some of it, like I said, was validating, which was great. It was like talking about the investigators or people who are kind of want to know what my house is worth, but I don't want to list it just yet. Kind of toe in the water type people. They obviously want to know what their house is worth. Shock horror, and they also want to kind of know how does the process work. Where could they buy? What are the prices like? Watch list type, features of suburbs they might be interested in. It's no surprise you sell your house, you got to find somewhere else to live. So it's pretty much a common end-to-end transaction, unless you're in some kind of investor. Even then, you might want to put your cash somewhere else. For our sellers, again, people often selling their home is the biggest transaction of their life. They might do it 2 or 3 times, so it's not something you do every day, buying milk or filling up a car. So they want a lot of transparency. They want to know what's going on. That's super important to them. And also, not just knowing what's going on, but make sure they're understood. That however they go through that journey, it's not just here's step 1, 2, 3, 4, but that someone takes the time to explain each step and the impact and that kind of stuff is very important. And then buyers, they just want to be talked to. Often buyers are, they're the very important part of this transaction, but they clearly feel from the feedback we got that they're kind of left out on the edge. No one wants to ask them to dance. They're standing on the side of the dance floor. It's very hard for them to get attention. And I'm sure, obviously at the moment you hear in the news, it's a hot market. It's a seller's market. So, there are a lot of buyers, standing on the side of dance floors that can't get a dance. So them, being talked to and communicated through the purchase process of all parts of that, like how their offer's going, how what's the house like and all that kind of stuff, and also once they do then get a sale, what all those little steps you need to happen after, building and pest, finance, all that other bits and pieces. Like making sure that that's easy to do and again, easy to understand. So we've got a whole bunch of other insights as well, and a lot of people who kind of either bought or sold a house will go or duh. But it's important to the biggest thing I think that we fight against is in probably everyday life, but certainly when you're trying to start a business like this, is their assumptions. Like you assume that your opinion is globally held. And if you don't validate even what can often be considered a common knowledge assumption, you can put an enormous amount of effort and energy and finances into something that's just not worth doing. So, so it was
and
good.
We did get some pretty good insights into other parts, which we just haven't mentioned now, because it's such a gold mine. We thought we'd just keep it to ourselves. There goes the transparency.
For now, it's
that's good.
You got to let it cook for a little bit before you share it.
Yeah, that's it. I'm sure people will see what insights we've got because the certain features in our website will dictate the features that people really want, because we listen to people and then we just build that.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool. Oh, that's good. Well, this week I'm the same with the school holidays, and we actually had friends come down from Brisbane.
Why would you do that in winter?
I know. Some really good family friends of ours. So they came down from Brisbane, and they actually just went through the buying and the selling process. So, we went up to Thredbo together because all our kids are the same age. So we went up to Thredbo. They went skiing, and also just travelled around where I live, which is country Victoria. But they actually they went through the buying and the selling process, and it's really interesting that the reason why they had to sell their house, and I hope it's okay for me to say this on this podcast, so I'm sure it will be. I won't name them anyway, but they're probably in the same position as a lot of other people right now. So they got a mortgage and they built their a pretty bloody nice house, bit of a mansion actually, and they built this really nice house about 5 years ago, and they got a mortgage for it, which was at 2%. And then once the 2% mortgage, now it's not the interest only, but the now they've got to pay principal and interest, but now the interests have gone up, and after their fixed term, they got a mortgage for 2% on a fixed term for 5 years, and now the fixed term is up, and it went up to 6%. So their mortgage repayment went from $400 a week up to $950 a week, and so they had to sell their house because they didn't have enough money. Well, it was just really tight in the budget. I mean, they did have enough money, but they just couldn't really afford to live there anymore. So they had to sell their house. They were kind of forced into that situation, and then they bought another house out of steel, to be honest. And it's such a good opportunity. So they certainly have landed on their feet. Nothing bad about that. But I feel like there'd be a lot of other people out there in the real estate industry that this is happening to, where they got an interest rate at 2% and now it's gone up to 6%, and they're like, we can't afford this anymore because we bought a $1.5 million house at 2%. Now the interest rates are going to go up. We're cooked. It's we don't have the cash flow to do this. And other circumstances shit, you might have a kid and then only one of you is working and you don't have the money to pay your mortgage anymore. So I feel like as the interest rates climb up, and then as interest rates climb and time continues, then all those fixed rates will start going into variable rates, and all of a sudden there'll be a lot more people in the market. So it's something
that's been talked about in the media for the last couple of years. There's kind of mortgage cliff. There's a bunch of people who are on 3-year fixed and they come off, and the 5-year guys are coming off as well. So it must be terrifying, frankly. But I also think, to be honest, you've known it's coming. It wasn't like you got a mortgage on a Monday at 2%, and then by Friday it's at 7%. So there have been plenty of, I guess, and look, the reality is that 6% might be just too much for anybody, no matter what they were earning on double income or not. But I think this was the problem with what happened during the COVID and those mass interest, just set so many people up, I think, for failure. And even if you'd been super disciplined and said, well, I'm going to pretend I'm paying a 4 or 5% mortgage and put that money away, that's very, very hard to do. And the cost of living has gone up significantly since then as well. So I think I don't know.
That's probably the
I
other
don't know.
factor, isn't it? It's like your mortgage going up, but not only that, your groceries have probably gone up about 200%. And it's like, that's like so much. It's so hard to just keep above for average Australians, or probably average people in any climate like this. It's certainly hard to keep your head above water.
Definitely.
Anyway, enough of that. So the other thing I've been doing this week is messaging investors and cold calling investors, because it's just what you got to do when you're trying to raise money. And I got some really good feedback from an investor, and I thought it was very interesting. And I think I put a comment on a post on LinkedIn like this the other day, of people saying, yeah, we're a pre-seed only investor. We only invest in pre-seed. And then I asked him why he didn't want to invest in us. And because he was like, no, this is not for me. And I was sort of like, just asked why. And really nice guy. And he said, you don't have a live product, customers, revenue, or a significant month-over-month growth. And I was like, we're pre-seed. So it's like, I feel like the definition for investors when they go, well, what's pre-seed and seed? There's a bit of a disparity there. Or people like, if you had a pre-seed and you already had a live product, you already had customers, you had significant month-over-month growth, then you basically just like ticked all the boxes of like, you've already gone through pre-seed, now you're in the seed stage. So like, why are you getting pre-seed investment? So, and the terms will be different. So you get higher valuations and all that sort of shenanigans when you have traction. So, yeah, but we're about to launch anyway. So, I mean, we're going to probably tick all those boxes. We have a customer. We don't have revenue yet. Although when we launch, we'll have revenue. So we'll probably have all those boxes ticked in about a week or 2 weeks. So yeah,
it is odd. Like, yeah, whether the definition, like his definition, is different to yours or most people's, or whether or not, like, I don't know, are they fishing like by saying pre-seed but not really? Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't feel like, I mean, they're very clearly two different stages in the development of a startup. Like, there's no real, like, I mean, the pre-seed is the pre-validation. Like, it's like, it's the higher risk.
Pre-revenue, pre-customers.
Yeah. Yeah, and even if you've got like a small number of, unless, because it was a bit of a Wild West back in the day, maybe pre-seed now is considered like, well, you need a little bit of revenue, a little bit of like tangible proof rather than a really good pitch deck to get into to the seed stage. So maybe it has bled a bit. I don't know, but it is it's interesting.
I feel like you're right, because there's a lot of, because I'm obviously reaching out to like lots of investors. I think I've reached out to over 150 now, and most of them just like ghost you, like they never actually message back, which is fine, because I mean they're obviously busy and they have the power of the money. Yeah, they're really like their time, and I feel like there's a lot of websites out there that go, oh yeah, put your pitch deck on here, and all they want to do is just scrape your idea and then go, oh cool, we know that this idea is now out there. And I was thinking it'd be really good later on in the future, and I thought about this with my last startup as well, is to create like we're a pre-seed fund, and then you get everyone, we specialize in this specific industry, which is your industry, and then you get all the competitors sending you their pitch deck before they actually start. And it's like, so the traction of every competitor. And I honestly think there's a lot of VCs, a lot of pretend VCs out there that actually do that, which is the phishing thing. It's like basically like phishing, and it's like, how do I know whether this is like legit or not legit? It's a bit hard. Anyway,
I don't know, mate. I don't know. Could be. Just make sure can you adjust that tinfoil hat that you're wearing? Make sure they can't read your brainwaves.
Yeah, true. So, this week I actually listened to an audiobook. Well, I've actually listened to it before. It's called Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. Really good book, good quality. And it really goes through that story, or that process of like, you get a character, there's a villain, and then like they meet a guide. And I think in previous businesses, one of the massive takeaways that I learned when I first listened to it was that most businesses think they're going to be heroes, and you are the hero. Most businesses think they are the hero. It's like they're talking about themselves as a hero, whereas it's completely wrong. the customer's the hero and we're the guide, and we're just the person who's trying to help them to get to where they need to go. And we give them a plan, and then we and we help them through that process. But they're the hero in the story, not us. Because like all stories are like that, like Batman, Superman. It's like you kind of look at those and you go, well, Batman has that dude in the what's his name? Iron Man has his AI. No, who's Batman's?
Alfred, the butler?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Alfred the butler. So everyone, yeah, that's it. He has the butler in the den in his like bat cave, and his butler does everything.
Yeah, it's a bat cave. If we're gonna get all comic book, do not call it a den. All right,
den.
It's a freaking bat cave. We need to move on real quick, or I'm going to get full nerd on this. This topic of this conversation is going to go completely in the wrong direction. Quick, next topic. Let's roll on. Quick,
next topic. So shout out to that. It's good. So I went through that. So and I was going to say that Richie, Matt, and I will probably go through our story brand. I've sort of done half of it anyway, but as I was listening to the book, they've got this online story brand, so I was going through that and filling it out just to sort of improve our communication of our startup, basically, and the communication on our website, the communication with pitch decks, all that sort of stuff.
Cool.
Have you come across that?
Sounds interesting. I haven't come across that one. No, I've been. I'm reading one at the moment calling "Thinking Fast and Slow."
Oh yeah,
and it is heavy. About thinking about two different ways your brain works, but that's Matt's book reviews can be another time because it's not direct. It's not related to the startup world. It's just the way people think and learn.
Yeah. I started listening to that book as well, and I found it very hard to listen to.
Yeah,
it was.
It's far more like almost like, and it's not, but it feels like a psychology textbook than a pick up and read type thing. But
I listened to that after I listened to Never Split the Difference, I think.
The negotiation guy who's Chris Voss.
Chris Voss. Chris Voss. And and Daniel Kahneman. Oh God. Kahneman. Kahneman. I probably said that totally wrong, but he did the think fast and slow. So
yeah,
it's a good book. Another good book that goes with those sort of things is No, the only negotiation system you need at home and work by Jim Camp. That's pretty good. Because it's along those sort of lines.
Are we a book club now, or are we doing this thing?
Yeah, sorry, just got distracted.
Yeah.
That's it. We're done. Oh, so this podcast is sponsored by Aprillian. So I said this to Matt before. I was listening to another podcast and it had a VC on it, and it was a VC podcast, and they were basically advertising the companies they'd invested in, and I was like, oh, we should just advertise ourselves. And this podcast is now sponsored by Aprillian. It's where you can buy and sell your house with a click of a button. I'm not sure. We haven't practiced this pitch at all for this. But yeah, basically,
if you've ever watched an episode, you know that's our standard. We don't practice anything. It just rolls out. Woz doesn't tell you what he's going to cut, what he's going to keep. You might find that he cuts a lot of his shit out and leaves a lot of that stuff that makes particularly me look like a dickhead. So, you should be, our long-time fans will be used to this format.
Yeah, that's it. The power of the editor. You could just cut out your own.
Like, I know, you are God of your kingdom, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, so Aprillian. So what we do is, I really should have thought about this before I've written this down. If you have a house that you want to sell, then we sell it using AI. We allow people to view those properties, make offers on those properties, offer on your property. And give you the tools necessary to sell your property and buy property very, very, very easily, without agents, without commissions. I could probably just go through the story brand, but do that because I've written it all down. Anyway, I got the hiccups. That's it.
Cool. So we're on
That was
to what was wondering.
Oh yeah. Well, how are we running a remote startup? I think this came about because I saw a LinkedIn post and it said something about you'd need to be in the office, and I was like, do you? I don't think you do. But I thought we could chat about like the pros and the cons of running a remote startup from the get-go, because Matt, you're in Brisbane, Richie's in Sydney, and I'm in down in the border of New South Wales, Victoria. So there's, we're like, we never see each other in person. And weirdly enough, the first time I met Richie was at a conference, and I'd been working with him for a year and a half, and I'd worked remote and hadn't actually met him in person, and then saw him at a conference a few months ago in person, and it was weird. It was like, oh, you're shorter or taller than I thought you were going to be.
And you are astoundingly good looking in person.
Yeah. It's like, damn. So, but what do you reckon the pros are, Matt, of like having a remote startup?
Look, depending on what your structure is, right? Like, because obviously we're on the East Coast of Australia, so time zone wise, it adds value. But you could, if it's international, people can effectively, your business can be open 24/7, depending on your position. That can make catch-ups difficult, and I think it really depends on the tools that you use to communicate when remotely, right? So the big advantage of being in person is speed of communication. I could reach over and, hey, what do you think of X, Y, Z? The con of that is you could be in the middle of something and you're easily accessible to be interrupted, right? So your flow can be broken. There's obviously all the pros about being able to, like, for me, it first started when I was in my previous couple of jobs ago, where in the middle of the pandemic, right? And suddenly my daughter was born kind of very early in the pandemic. So I got to spend an enormous amount of time with her purely due to the lack of commute that I wouldn't have got, otherwise. So there's that element. I've got other mates working in other industries who work from home, who are like advocates of must be in the office, and they've taken jobs, work remote, and they initially hated it, but now they're like the same thing. The family side they get access to, much more present, doing the kids drop off and pick up and things like that. There's cost benefits of time, So, but I really think it depends on the tools that you use. Like, obviously,
so we use so we use Gather, don't we? So we use, and if no one's ever heard of Gather, it's pretty awesome, to be honest. It's just a virtual office where you have a little avatar and you can walk over to someone's desk, and then as soon as you walk over, the camera starts, and then you can have a quick chat just like you would in a normal office. So I feel like they've really bridged the gap between those two. So shout out to Gather. Maybe you should sponsor this podcast. Probably not. But I feel like that's a really, really good tool. Like, that's an awesome tool because we use Slack, but we don't. But it's not like we have to go, oh, are you around for a message, or are you around for a quick video chat? So we Gather, you can just go, oh, they're online, I'll wander over. And if they're not there, you just call them, and then they go, oh, yeah, and they might just pick up. Or you can sit in the same area with your cameras on if you really need to, where you can have like virtual meetings pretty easily. So I reckon that's awesome.
It's certainly the best. It's certainly the best thing that I've come across, because previous to that, like I said, when we first went to lockdown, it was like Google Meets. So you had to kind of schedule. Like, there was no. It was so janky. Like, oh, let's have a coffee. So I'd schedule one. Whereas previously in the office, I just walk past with a cup and be like, coffee? Yep. Okay, cool. We walk off and have a chat on the way. So Gather's, like, even its proximity type stuff. Like, as you walk kind of past people, like, depending if they're saying like in a general common area, you start to hear the conversation, and then as you walk away, it dies down. So that stuff's really, really cool. It's certainly the best. Look, I've seen heard people using like Discord and even video game servers and things like that. I think there was a massive company in the pandemic that used Red Dead Redemption 2 as a giant staff like thing. But Like this,
So
I
you
think the biggest.
you're just in the first person shooter sort of games, and you're just
Yeah,
standing
yeah.
next to each other, just going, yeah. So like,
We've got that
so what are you
report
guys doing
done.
today?
Yeah.
Yeah, sweet.
I don't know.
And then you're like, all
I
right,
think that
just start up's over, and then you go bang and shoot the other person.
I don't know, but I think the thing is that the fact that like calling someone is
Yeah, it's very formal.
feels very formal, even if it's for a casual
Yeah,
chat, right?
yeah,
But like compared to kind of in an office where that fundamental interaction was missing, I think Gather does a phenomenal job. And yeah, I think it's
yeah, yeah.
right.
It is pretty good. And well, and I guess the reason why we're a remote startup is that we want to be global from day one. Like that's the point. It's like we're not building a product for Australian markets. We're not building it for New Zealand markets. We're building it for like every market, like every single market in the world. So we need to be global from day one. So there's no point in actually having an actual office, because it's like, well, as soon as we scale up to basically the seed phase, as soon as we launch and then we start scaling up, then it's like, well, we're just all going to have to be, in different cities anyway. So it's like, what's the point? So, I mean, I feel like
I think
that's
the balance
the
is
why.
like, I've heard a lot of places like going to a mix, a couple of days at home, a couple of days in the office. So look, I think there is definitely value in people coming together. Google, I don't know if they still do. I read an article a few years ago about they would do, I think it was once a month, they'd do like 2 days a month, and one of them was a big meeting day, or maybe once a fortnight, something like, and all your meetings and your workshops would be done on that day. So you knew going to the office, you weren't going to get any time on your laptop or whatever to work, to just bang stuff out. You scheduled everything else around that. And then at the end of the month, they'd have a big social day as well. Like, so I think there's a big social element. This is great, and even Gather, but you can't beat sitting down, like that human to human interaction. Again. So I think that bridge of like, yep, we're at home, you have regular catch ups in some kind of format where you can see somebody. And this whole concept of like, it was a big issue, I think, early on. I don't want to turn my camera on because I don't want people to see me. I'm like, man, well, if you're in the office, people could see you. Are you joking? Like, this is ridiculous. And I remember having to deal with a few people back in my old job about that. I was like, this is not a thing, mate. Like, this is, they turn it on or you come back into the office. They're your two options if you're really that strong.
Well, I think that's why you need those remote, like those quarterly, like offsites.
Yeah,
I think that's what they call them.
Yeah.
So it's like you can actually catch up in person, because having a beer with someone breaks down a lot of like social barriers, and then you really get to know someone, and then you can take the piss out of them a lot easier, and you can have a laugh a lot easier.
Well, positive shared experiences add significantly to culture. And that sense of bonding and sensing of team. Like, there are certainly ways it's done in the sporting world. You and I probably experience in different levels, and then there's the office things, kind of same stuff, different things. And I think the companies that I've most enjoyed working for have done a really good job of doing that. It also, I think, levels as an organization gets bigger and more layers come into it. Having those social events can certainly flatten it again and make those higher up people feel more accessible to the people who maybe don't interact on a daily basis, because they've got shared positive experiences, whatever they are. Like, it could be beers, it could be team building activity, whatever. But I do think you have to your point, they have to be done regularly in person, because it just, you can't beat it. Like, you just can't.
Yeah. And offsites there. And we'll definitely be doing lots of offsites in Brilliant as well.
Oh, like private jets here, there, and everywhere. Like,
once we make it big, we'll be like going to fucking Aspen and going skiing for like a week and having like, oh yeah, we're going to do this. Like, just want to go skiing at Aspen. Sweet. Go skiing at Aspen. That'd be terrible.
It would be.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's all we've got time for today. Thanks for listening, everyone. If anyone made it to this point, congratulations. You are the few. And like we said at the start, if you're a startup founder, investor, customer, or even a competitor of ours and want to stay up to date with all our shenanigans, hit subscribe and be a fly on the wall. And thanks for listening. Stay awesome.